Now then, we're going to move on, have a look at the newspapers. Back to a top story, if you like, because we were hearing from Benjamin Netanyahu meeting those finance ministers, or sorry, foreign affairs ministers in Brussels. And you've been following that in the newspapers, haven't you, as well, Solange? Benjamin Netanyahu meeting with those ministers as we speak, in fact.
Indeed, he is. And that informal breakfast today was preceded by a meeting yesterday with Emmanuel Macron in Paris. And that meeting is front page news of the Jerusalem Post this morning. And I've chosen this cover first to start off with because it has not focused on the fact that Macron said Trump's decision to move its embassy to Jerusalem was dangerous to peace. Instead of talking about the tension of the meeting, the paper focuses on the fact that Macron said he won't be taking the lead as the main peace negotiator. Now, it's an interesting choice because it's a sort of positive spin, essentially. It puts emphasis on the fact that the U.S. is still, for the paper, holding on to its role as an impartial peace broker. For the Jerusalem Post, that is a good thing. And even if for many the U.S.'s impartiality is long gone, and even more so now since Trump's announcement.
You found a piece that interested, didn't you, in the Israeli paper Haaretz, focusing more on Israel and France's actual relationship.
Yeah, Haaretz says that France could soon be taking a more active role in peace negotiations. It says that Paris has been active in trying to unravel other problems in the Middle East, such as the crisis in Lebanon with the prime minister resigning, and that it might soon do the same with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Haaretz describes how Macron pushed Netanyahu to explain his intentions in regard to East Jerusalem, which the Palestinians say is their capital.
And those protests over the weekend, and how Palestinians have reacted to Trump's decision, also making the headlines.
Between rage and resignation. That is the cover of the Lebanese paper L'Orient du Jour this morning. The Beirut-based paper says that even if protests are continuing, they aren't as widely followed as some would have expected them to be. L'Orient du Jour says that their correspondent in Ramallah says that in the West Bank, Palestinians did not massively protest. And the journalist says that that resignation won out over rage. And that she says that that's because of an increasing distrust of the Palestinian Authority and especially Mahmoud Abbas. L'Orient du Jour says that the real loser of Trump's announcement is Abbas, that he needs to speed up reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas if he wants to hold on to power and regain the trust of Palestinians, who, according to the paper, are worn out by the violence and by a lack of leadership.
What would happen if that Palestinian Authority actually collapses is one of the questions that the New York Times is asking today.
Yeah, the Times and the Guardian and a number of papers have explainers. So if you're not up to date on the Jerusalem issue, those are good places to go. The Times hypothesizes that about what would happen if the Palestinian Authority collapses. It says that peace would then become increasingly unlikely, and it would create a future where more Palestinians would be under Israeli control, which the paper says means that Israel would eventually have to choose between being a Jewish state or a democratic one, as Palestinians wouldn't have a state and thus would, according to the paper, be by default entirely under rule by Israel.
Okay, now French politics also making headlines. Change of direction for you in the foreign press today. European papers covering the election last night of Laurent Wauquiez to France's main Conservative party, Les Républicains.
Yeah, Politico this morning has an article about the new leader of France's right, and they're calling him the bad boy. That's because the paper says Wauquiez is a, quote, hard-charging right-winger that now needs to unify his party and win back voters. Now, the Courrier International says Wauquiez may do that by emulating Donald Trump, as you can see here in a cartoon of the 42-year-old with his Donald Trump shadow. Now, Wauquiez has come under criticism, like the U.S. president, for disavowing his wealthy background and saying he's a man of the people. He's also been criticized for courting the far right, much like Trump, despite having in the past courted more sort of middle centrist circles.
Okay, amazing to see how he gets that hair shadow.
Yeah.
Now, finally, moving on to Russia. Vladimir Putin is in Ankara today, going to be meeting with Turkey's president, but he's also the centre of a new art exhibit in Moscow.
Yeah, if you can't get enough of Vladimir Putin in all his states and posturings, then this article in Huffington Post is for you. It explains that there's currently an exhibition in Moscow that doesn't just sing the praises of the Russian leader, but actually portrays him as a superpower. Empire, or as the installation is dubbed, Super Putin. On a more serious note, art in Russia is also the topic of an article in The Independent. Ballet was shut down 2 days before its premiere this summer, and it has finally opened. It's about the life of dancer Rudolf Nureyev, and it was widely speculated that the ballet was shut down because it talks about Nureyev's homosexuality and the fact that he fled Russia. The good news is that the play premiered. The bad news is that its director is under house arrest, and his supporters say that the arrest is politically motivated. And the cast of the play wore T-shirts at their curtain call that said, "Free the director."
Okay, we shall see if he manages to be freed. All right, thanks very much,
One would hope so.
Moujane there with the international papers on France 24. Very latest news with you in just a couple of minutes' time, so don't go away.